Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me at the market site in Times Square, we have Casey Lynch. She's the co-founder and CEO of Cortexime. We're going to take a look at a new approach for the treatment of Alzheimer's disease. Casey, it's great to have you with us at the market site studio. Important work that you're doing. What is Cortexime's scientific approach, and how is it so different from what's out there?
So we have a new small molecule in phase 3 development for Alzheimer's disease. It's based on a new discovery of an infection in the brain of Alzheimer's patients. And when you infect mice with the same bacteria, it gets into their brain and triggers all the downstream pathology of Alzheimer's disease, including the beta amyloid plaques and, most importantly, the neurodegeneration that causes the memory loss and the personality changes.
Why are these new approaches needed within the field?
Well, for the past 30 years, people have been really focused primarily on a single mechanism of action, the beta amyloid plaques in the brain. But we know there's a lot more going on in the brain, in the pathology of the brain of patients. There's neuroinflammation, there's microglial activation, which are the immune cells of the brain. And when people started asking, what's the purpose of the beta amyloid in the brain? What's it doing there? They found that it behaves like an antimicrobial peptide that's part of the immune system. So it's really important to get upstream of all of these downstream pathologies, not just treat these outcomes, just the inflammation, just the beta amyloid, just the tau tangles, but really get upstream at the cause of all of those downstream effects.
So it's really interesting, just to break it down a little bit, it's almost as if they were not looking at the symptom, but kind of looking at the bigger issue.
Exactly.
Okay. So how should people think about your company's work in the context of some of the higher profile recent failures that we've seen in Alzheimer's studies?
Right. So, I mean, it's a lot of good scientists have been trying to cure Alzheimer's disease, trying to put forward good treatments, but it's important to learn from those failures. And our hypothesis really predicted the failure of those approaches. As you said, those are downstream effects according to our hypothesis, and really wouldn't have an effect on stopping neurodegeneration unless you could get farther upstream and treat this infection, which we believe is causing the neurodegeneration.
So tell us more about the GAIN clinical trial. What are you trying to prove in this study?
So the GAIN study is a large global study, 570 patients with cognitive readouts as well as biomarker readouts. We have a very strong biomarker program to track the infection both at baseline and after treatment. But of course the real endpoint is cognition, and we have designed this study to really be a definitive proof of efficacy study.
So when you talk about the cause of it, as you were explaining to me before, it starts at your mouth, is what the study's trying to prove.
Right. So my co-founder discovered this bacteria in the brain based on some epidemiology showing a link between periodontal disease, gum disease, and a higher risk of Alzheimer's later in life. So this isn't evidence of causation, but this was a clue to look further. Also, the biology of periodontal disease is very similar to Alzheimer's disease in that it's a chronic, degenerative, age-related disease. So this bacteria has very specific signature, and it doesn't stay in your mouth. We know it's called Porphyromonas gingivalis. We know that it can move throughout the body through various mechanisms, and now we know that it can travel to the brain and cause damage.
Well, it's interesting because other diseases, particularly gastrointestinal, it all starts in your mouth. That's the most likely point of entry.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important, I think, for the scientific field in general to understand the impact of these chronic infections, chronic pathogens that, again, as you're saying, don't stay in the mouth. They move to other organs and can cause dysfunction.
Let's talk about the company a little bit more. Nasdaq listed CRTX. Congratulations on the recent IPO.
Thank you.
You have new board members, a new advisory board.
Yes, we've been building out our clinical advisory board, and it's really exciting to see some very well-respected scientists like Lon Schneider at USC, Jeff Cummings, and some very important investigators who are also sites for our clinical studies like the Banner Institute, like Dr. Mark Brody and Ira Goodman in Florida. So it's really exciting to see people in the Alzheimer's field really looking at our data and getting excited about it and getting excited to offer it to their patients.
All right, and to wrap up, what's next for Cortexime?
So we're going to continue to focus on the GAIN study, focus on execution, on enrollment. We also have a library of small molecule inhibitors. This is our homegrown drug discovery, so we're continuing to do research, and we'll be publishing ongoing papers on this hypothesis and other indications for our library.
All right, Casey, thanks so much. We look forward to having you back.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining me on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.